I'm like, well, sitting exercises don't get you back to walking better, and they don't get you back to getting out of a chair better. Getting out of a chair multiple times gets you better at getting out of a chair. So, so I try to just make things really logical. You get better at this by doing it more. And, they'll look at me like, oh, you're right. But
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reshape Your Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan Nolte, and today I'm speaking with one of my old colleagues from when I worked at Hillcrest Health and Rehab, which is a skilled nursing facility. Her name is Betsy Spieler, and she's a fellow physical therapist with a passion for sharing the benefits of strength training with older adults in her practice and community. With a background in orthopedic and geriatric rehabilitation, exercise science, and strength and conditioning, she's partnered with UBX, a private Omaha gym, to develop an evidence-based program for older adults called UB Stronger 55 Plus. And so we're going to talk about this program today, and we're also talking about fall prevention because September is Fall Prevention Awareness Month. And it's going to be a really interesting conversation, especially if you're interested in maintaining healthy bones, healthy muscles, and preventing falls as you age. So Betsy, thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to hear about this program and just how you guys have developed it and what's included. So go ahead and give us maybe a little bit of your background and then how you kind of found UBX Gym and then worked to partner with them for this really cool program.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I have been a physical therapist for over 20 years now, and I originally started my career in orthopedics, and then kind of melded with family situations into more skilled nursing. And so I've been working with older adults almost exclusively for over 10 years now, and have really enjoyed it and just love watching the potential of people be realized through dosing activity correctly, not limiting people to moving slowly in their older age. So as I've learned more about that and gained skills and expertise in that, it's been really exciting. I have an undergraduate degree in exercise science. And so originally I was really interested in that before I became a physical therapist. So I love to strength train myself and have just transferred some of that information into my practice, along with, movement within the field that has been, really promoting more evidence-based intensity of exercise for even older people. So that led me to partnering with UBX. It's a private gym that I do a class at 3 times a week myself. And there's high-level trainers there, and it's a really holistic group of people that concentrate on nutrition and mindset and overall wellness. So it's called UBX, the Ultimate Body Experience, is what that stands for. But they also kind of named themselves Omaha's Health Hub. So this is just one more service line to serve older adults specifically. So with my knowledge of the body and how older adults, their movement changes as they age, or some modifications we have to make because of a history or an injury, developed with another trainer, a really specific class that touches on lots of different things.
Yeah. So tell me how you saw this need as a physical therapist. You currently work in a skilled nursing facility setting, which, if you're not familiar with that, it's a short-term rehab. So people come and stay for a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2, depending on the severity. And then they go back home, and usually they get home care. And then sometimes after home care, they get outpatient. But sometimes people don't even need a skilled nursing facility. They might go home and go straight to outpatient or go straight to home care. But then what? So like, how does UBX 55 Plus or UB Stronger really fit into this system of geriatric care that we have?
Sure. Yeah, there was this gap between, the specific rehab things that we were doing in even in outpatient rehab to really address a specific impairment, like an injury, or maybe it was, cardiac related, so more general weakness. But then once the patient has their home exercise program and they're at a good functional level, well, Medicare and most insurances are like, well, you're good. Go and be on your own now. So the home exercise program that you have from your therapist isn't meant to carry you for the rest of your life. So there are some other community programs. Everybody knows usually about silver sneakers and things like that, but there wasn't anything I could find that was more specific on strengthening and combating that loss of muscle that happens, people think inevitably as we age. But just like any preventative health condition, you have preventative wellness, and that is strengthening and working on your balance and things. So that's where I saw it, is there was this gap between rehab and fitness. And so this program fills that gap.
Yeah. So we don't just want to discharge someone with like a sheet of exercises, say, this is your home exercise program, good luck, because we know what usually happens is eventually a revolving door of illness. They come back, we called them frequent flyers. So the frequent flyers in the rehab facility, the people that just can't quite get healthy. And we know that if we want to prevent falls, we have to start as early as possible with strengthening, with good nutrition. So I'm interested so first of all, who's the team that you work with? And then how did you guys develop the curriculum for your program, and what does it look like?
So I work specifically, I co-coach with another health professional or fitness professional named Nick Monzu. And then also the owner of the gym, who is Luke Shook, and they're both experienced trainers. So Nick does a lot of the programming for the class that I actually take myself. And so I've, seen his work for the past 3 years and been doing that every month. And the program changes about every 4 weeks. And I really liked the format of it. So from the knowledge that I have about what needs older adults have in their movement and just functional movements, like picking a laundry basket up off of the floor is actually a deadlift. So we just incorporated those exercise names, but they're really, really functional movements. So, a push-up on a box is opening a heavy door. So it's all about just making you stronger with your everyday life. So, we do a little bit different programming. The first section, there's 3 sections. The first section is more really strength-based, where you are doing low volume, so only maybe 4 to 6 repetitions, but a high weight, a high intensity. So say you were doing a bicep curl, where you could probably do, a 5-pound pretty easy for 10 repetitions, but we want you to only be able to do 4 repetitions. So you might have to pick a 12-pound dumbbell and do that 4 times. And so by that 3rd and 4th rep, it should feel hard, like you couldn't hardly even do a 5th or a 6th one. So coaching people on their exertion level, the rating of perceived exertion, we use that. And that's something I use with clinically that we're taught in school and we use in practice, because a lot of older adults are on cardiac medications, pulmonary medications that affect their vitals, their blood pressure response, their heart rate response. So we really do try to focus on their feeling of exertion. And that takes time. It takes coaching to feel like, oh, I can do something hard, because that 25-pound kettlebell looks impossible to lift. But once you figure out how to do it and you've gotten over that fear and you're listening to your body, it takes a few weeks though for people to have confidence in themselves to kind of bump up to the next weight. And that's what the coaching is for. We have a really small ratio. It's 1 coach to no more than 5 adults. So we have 1 class right now of 10 and 2 coaches. Nick and I are both in there. And then I have a class of 5 by myself right now. So that's the ratio we're going to stick to. And it kind of depends on the level of everyone in the class. Then the second section is more higher reps. So maybe 10 to 12 repetitions. So more medium weights. And then the third section is where we kind of throw in the fun things, where we get to address agility or higher level balance or changing directions or a cognitive component with an activity. So that's where I get to throw in all my therapy tricks, I think, and then use the gym equipment in a fun way. But it really increases people's confidence in their movement.
That's really important. And I think people might not realize how quickly they can decline,
Mm-hmm.
particularly after a joint surgery, where if
Mm-hmm.
you have a period of immobility for an extent,
Mm-hmm.
a week, 2 weeks, you can lose
Yeah.
so much muscle mass so
Mm-hmm.
fast, and it can
Mm-hmm.
take a while to rebuild. I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to ask why the high intensity followed by the moderate intensity. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just kind of curious why you guys chose that training
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah. I think it, for one, it preserves, I feel like, some joint health
Yeah.
because you really do want to build in the first section. You have the low volume, high weight, and so you're really going to change your muscle fibers. You're going to get into hypertrophy, which is combating sarcopenia, which is the loss of muscle and loss of function. So, and functional activities, we don't usually have to do 12 times in a row.
Yeah.
You only really have to lift that bag of dog food in and out of the car, what, twice, three times, into the car, into the house, so those things we really want to increase capacity for those short, only a few rep type activities. And then the other medium, intensity, higher rep group, I think builds your muscular endurance for those longer acting things. Putting away dishes, you're doing like 12 or 15 dishes in an overhead cabinet. Well, the one arm overhead press is going to really help you with that. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's important to highlight the differences between the different activities, different exercises have
Mhm.
different physiological benefits. And so I
Yes.
think varying up the movements and the
Hmm.
exercise plan is really important. And we understand that as physical
Hmm.
therapists and people that have
Hmm.
really studied exercise. But,
Yeah.
just walking as your primary form of exercise
Hmm.
doesn't optimize your prevention of sarcopenia, and it doesn't
Mm.
optimize your balance and your agility.
Right.
So what are some of the results from the pilot program? Because
Hmm.
you guys kind of just ran your first kind of program.
Yes.
What were some of the results that you saw?
Yes. So we had 8 original people who committed to, with Nick and I to kind of be our guinea pigs, for lack of a better term. But it kind of let us work some of the kinks out. And it's people that we knew. They were kind of familiar to the gym and familiar to us. So they were willing to kind of go along with some changes midstream, where we kind of, it just took about a second rep of the programming to figure that we just wanted 3 sections because we started with 4, and that was just too much demonstration and new
Gotcha.
learning of
Yeah.
movements. Um, so, sorry, I'm refocusing on your question, Morgan.
It's
um,
okay. The results
yeah,
of the pilot program.
right. And so we did a lot of testing. So can I talk about the metrics maybe that we're tracking, and
Yeah, that's
then that'll
cool.
kind of flow into there. So we wanted people to get value from this program because it is a cash pay program, that you're signing up for, and we want you to have value beyond just the hour that you're there working out. So we do an intake visit with every person where it's almost like a mini therapy evaluation where I'm going over medical history, any movement issues that you might have. And then we do some evidence-based testing that I do even with my lower level clients who are rehabbing after an illness. Balance like single leg standing, an agility test like the 4 square step test,
Mhm.
just the simple 30-second sit to stand. How many can you do? Those tests all have evidence-based norms based on your age. So we do those tests, and then I would go over the norm chart with people so they kind of knew where they were at, average, below, or above. And then we did them every month. So we kind of tracked it all summer, all 3 months. And then even after 2 months, with the sit to stand test, we saw overall a 40% increase
That's
in
awesome.
the
That's
numbers.
huge.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of that we know from strength training is motor learning. You're
Yep.
learning how to move better. So it's not that they built up all these great, leg muscles. They did a little, but their body learned how to use their muscles better. And then the balance, we also tested gait speed, which of course we know is the 6th vital sign. So it's very related to immobility or hospitalization. So we tested that as well, and we saw about a 20% improvement in gait speed. So just less risk of having an event, a medical event, or going to the hospital. So, and that was only in the first 2 months of classes. So we know there's going to be a short-term benefit, and we've kind of coached them to say, well, now this is going to be kind of where you're at. Like, unless you're really wanting to get more into fitness, which is fine, but they're going to get to their average, above average numbers and probably plateau a little bit. So with this new group, we've decided to measure these 6 different metrics, 2 per month. So you'll get every metric measured every quarter, basically. Okay. So it's more of a spot check, which I think will be a little more valuable over time, because you don't really see, after you've been working out for a while, you don't see as big of changes. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people will change. Yeah. So, and just to know that that's normal, so, so that's some of the short-term gains that we've been showing.
Yep. So what about other parts of the curriculum? I think this is interesting too, because I love educating. Like when I was when I was a PT, I built so much like quote unquote therapeutic activity.
Yes.
The educating piece. And that's really what drove me to transition into this. That's my favorite part of the job, is like helping people understand why certain choices are healthier for them than others. And so what types of education are you providing to these participants outside of the realm of taking them through the physical training?
Yeah, so we're just still developing this content, because we're going to do a different subject every month. So this subject, this month, because it was Fall Prevention Awareness Month, we are doing, Facebook posts on falls. And so currently we're doing the Facebook post, but we'll also be having that content sent out via email. So people don't have to be on social media to get the content. So far, those are our 2 mediums for dispersing the information. And then we have other topics planned out for every month, like bone health. And so we started actually some jumping. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
It's just a little hopping, but just gaining some confidence. But, that's what your bones need. So we're starting things in the class that will relate to the topics. We'll have one on walking, like cardiovascular exercise, and then some options for that. And then it's a way to build community, maybe to meet up like at a trail that nobody's been to, or that people want to try together. So that kind of builds, I think, your accountability with the class. And then we all know that that's a part of healthy living, is to have healthy relationships, especially based around something like fitness. It's a good positive influence. Other things would be like nutrition. Sorry.
Yep. Go ahead.
Like some nutrition, as far as, including more fruits and vegetables, getting enough protein. What are some alternative sources of that? We've given out, a smoothie recipe, because people are wanting to know more about how to add fruits and vegetables to their diet. And older people sometimes eat less, and so they're not eating enough. That's just an example.
You know what I'd be interested in are cognitive improvements. Haven't already thought about doing that. I don't know what the cognitive level is, but we know that exercise, number one, but then also community is so good for cognition. So I'd be really interested to know in cognitive improvements. And I think that could be another aspect that could be measured, if, not like we have to just measure everything here, but
yes, I know. Yeah. Well, you can do maybe some self measurements on those too. Have people some self-reported changes that people have seen over time.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to ask too, is this a certain duration, like a 2-month or a 3-month, or is it kind of an ongoing thing? How are you guys structuring it?
Yeah, it's an ongoing open enrollment thing. We are, the exercise programming is 4 weeks long. And so like Tuesday workouts will be the same every Tuesday, except we change the repetitions. We start out with lower reps, we get to more higher medium reps, and then we go down to low reps on week 4. And then it rotates. So in August, when we had 5 weeks, we used that last week as kind of a free play type thing. And so I set up a parkour course for older adults, where they got to, use like mobility in a different way. They got to use their strength in a different way. So we set up some things that are just a little out of the norm, but still fun and engaging, and building strength and endurance.
That's so cool. I think this is Great. It reminds me a little bit of Stronger Life with Dustin Jones. Have you heard of
Mm-hmm.
that? I
Yep.
had him on the podcast, and I think
Yeah.
that it sounds a little bit similar. I think yours
Mm-hmm.
might be a little bit more small group focused than his
Mm-hmm.
might be like a little bit more of a, only gym for adults 55 plus with maybe
Yes.
bigger classes. But
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing more of this, and I know that it's needed. I know that
Mm-hmm.
that in-person support and community and
Mm-hmm.
personal coaching is needed, specifically, like you said, to challenge yourself. Like
Yes.
after my conversation with Dustin, and when I
Mm-hmm.
asked him, I was like, what's your rep? What reps do you recommend for strength training? He's like 5 sets of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, ooh, I'm at 8 to 12 reps.
Yeah.
But the first time that I increased to 5, I was afraid of injury, and I'm young.
Uh-huh.
So how do you help people
Yeah.
overcome that fear of injury
Mm-hmm.
when they aren't quite sure about their movement capacity yet?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like we talked about exertion levels,
Mhm.
it takes time to get to know your body, and especially if these movements and the names of the movements are really unfamiliar. Um, first, and some people just depends on where they are, in their daily life, but they progress at different rates. We have one gentleman who I think is trusting himself more and more, and so now he's deadlifting 75 pounds, but at the beginning it was like 35 pounds, and you
Mhm.
know I knew he had the capacity to do more, but he had to trust himself to do it. So as a coach, I'm just gently prompting, or I'm paying attention, like, Sherry, is this your third set? On the fourth set, maybe try this one. It's only 10 pounds heavier, but your form looks great, so I think you can handle it. So I'm paying attention to breakdown of movement. That's my job, is watching people move. So, and then, Nick, of course, is an expert in human body movement too. So we're making sure that the weight that they're choosing is appropriate, but also challenging enough. So we gently, gently suggest increases in weights, but we can tell by personality too whether people are going to be receptive to that or they need a little more time.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
When
yeah.
I used to work out with my dad sometimes at the gym, and he knew that I was looking at his face more
Mhm.
than his body sometimes
Mhm.
to assess his exertion. So
Yeah.
he learned to play that, and he would like fake straining on his face. And I'm like, Dad, I know you're not really working that hard. So you really got to get good at both the facial and the physical aspects of
Yeah.
muscle fatigue to trick a physical therapist.
Right.
So that was
Yeah.
kind of funny. So I
Yeah.
think a really interesting part of this conversation too is the importance of people taking personal responsibility for their health because of
Mhm.
changes in Medicare. Like people,
Mhm.
I think if they're outside of the healthcare industry, they are not aware of how many cuts therapy
Mhm.
is getting from Medicare
Mhm.
and how that's going to impact the level of services that companies are able to provide without going bankrupt. So,
Right.
can you explain just your
Mhm.
perspective on that a little bit and tie it
Yeah.
into the importance of personal responsibility for your own health?
Mhm. Mhm. Right. I think some of it's looking at the healthcare system as a whole. We don't necessarily have a robust healthcare system. We have a really good sick care system that treats disease and helps keep people from dying, but it's not overly focused on quality of life. And so, what I see in the population that I treat is people with different types of insurances, and I won't go into a lot of details, but there's traditional Medicare and then there's managed Medicare plans, and they are looking for those notches in improvement, like, how far can you walk, how much help do you have at home, can you get up and down with maybe just supervision or somebody helping you a little bit, then it's time to go home. Which is sometimes how people are discharged from the hospital. So we know people aren't lifting weights before they leave the hospital. You can go home and still need a little bit of help, but we want people to be safe and medically stable, of course, is the primary reason I like to combat some of those insurance denials. Um, but overall, people are getting less and less minutes of therapy. And so that makes it even more important as a clinician to improve the quality, to improve the intensity of therapy that they're getting, so that those functional gains happen in a shorter amount of time when it's medically appropriate. But also I really try to use some motivational interviewing with people to kind of lead them to see beyond this acute episode. Like, how were you a year ago? How far could you walk a year ago? And then get them thinking in that forward thinking mindset that, oh yeah, I need to get back to that. And so I'm like, well, sitting exercises don't get you back to walking better, and they don't get you back to getting out of a chair better. Getting out of a chair multiple times gets you better at getting out of a chair. So, so I try to just make things really logical. You get better at this by doing it more. And they'll look at me like, oh, you're right, but it's hard work, especially if you're just coming off of an illness. So, I'm there to be kind of that counselor and that coach, even in my clinical practice, to help them realize their potential and look beyond now, but then set them up for that expectation that this doesn't have to be the new normal, the new lower level, like, oh, well, now I have a bad knee, or now I have to use a walker. Well, if you didn't use a walker 2 months ago and you are healthy enough and can progress, if it's appropriate, then let's try to progress beyond that. But often the intensity of therapy or the amount of therapy visits that they get isn't quite enough. So you really have to be an advocate for yourself as a patient, and advocate for going beyond, getting, as much home health therapy as you can, going to outpatient therapy to reach those goals that you're looking 6 months ahead to be able to get to. They don't happen on their own. And usually people aren't super self-motivated to be as intense with their home exercise program. I pay for a gym membership, so I know. So I like going where there's support and guidance and everything. So that's one reason we're providing this program, is to just be another resource for people that have something medical and they don't want to get hurt. And they don't want people, maybe a trainer who doesn't have the medical knowledge, to lead them in a path that would put them in a compromising situation medically. So I work with people with exercise, people that are ill all the time. So that's something I do day in and day out. So the people that are walking into my gym seem very high level. So
I know, it's like, oh, this is easy peasy. Like, let's really get you moving, in a more confident way. And I think that's the cool thing here is I think that a lot of older adults are really intimidated to go to the gym because they don't know what to do. They're afraid to get hurt. They're afraid to be embarrassed. They're afraid, they're just kind of afraid to be alone at it. And so I think that the community support of it is really great, especially for this population. I think another thing that's interesting here is, like you were talking about, treating the whole person and not just the impairment. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think looking at all the other factors, and that's part of what the gym that I go to, UBX, is also concerned about, is your internal health and your mental health and your emotional health, and incorporating that into exercise. I think treating people as multi-systems and not just looking pigeonholed at one thing. My knowledge has given me the ability to include the impairment in a more general program. So if I have somebody who had a rotator cuff tear and they don't have a perfect shoulder anymore, well, this is how you still do this exercise modified, and then get the most out of it that you can. So treating them as their whole person, not pointing out the limitations, but just showing them a way to get past some barriers in that with their functional fitness. And then really incorporating hydration. We talk about, getting enough water. We talk about getting their steps in, all of the CDC recommendations for fitness as far as cardiovascular and strength training and flexibility. We do flexibility things with our warm-ups. So just a multifaceted approach. We also have, as part of the group, nutrition coaches too. So if people want a little more guidance, or, we just have people that are right in the office that can, have an on-the-spot little consult with them to see if they would need more information or more guidance with that. So, and it's nothing that we sell or push or anything, because we just do some general knowledge sharing in the class, which for a lot of people is enough to motivate them to make some changes.
Yes. And for people that might not be aware of what changes, protein. And especially as we age, we need to increase the dose of protein due to anabolic resistance. So as you age and you're more likely to develop sarcopenia, your testosterone goes down, your human growth hormone goes down, and we need a higher dose of protein to stimulate that leucine threshold, which is kind of that essential amino acid required to lay down muscle tissue. And so I think that I see it all the time. You see it all the time. People waste away. They get to about 80 and they just really decline a lot faster because of the sarcopenia. But it can be mitigated with this resistance training that you're teaching people with adequate protein intake. So at least like 30 to 40 grams a meal is what I typically recommend to get that leucine threshold of 3 grams is found in about 30 grams of high quality protein. So if people are listening and they're like, oh, what nutritional recommendations, can I do for fall prevention? Protein and hydration are huge. Do you have any other specific ones related to nutrition and fall prevention that you think about?
Yeah, I think one other place that most Americans, not just older adults, but most Americans are deficient in is fiber. We don't get enough fiber in our diets because we don't eat enough fruits and vegetables, and beans and whole grains. And so getting those in good quality and quantity, and sometimes you need to do a smoothie to be able to get, a lot of the nutrients and the fiber from all those fruits and vegetables in a concentrated amount. And so that's something that we'll promote as well. Also, that's just really good for gut health. And that's just another issue that people end up having too, is problem with their digestion. So slowly gaining more fiber and getting the recommended amount of fiber in your diet over time. You don't want to make changes quickly in that area, but over time, and then things can really improve. So that's another area that we promote.
Yep. And if people are wondering, 25 grams for women, 38 grams for men is the current recommended daily allowance. And it is quite a bit, especially if you're getting it from whole food. I think I work with people, a lot of times they want to lose weight and they're really surprised at how much food I recommend they eat and how full they feel.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, this isn't just about losing weight. This is about improving your health, and the weight loss will come. But what I'm more concerned about is, can you move in 20 years? Are you fueled in 20 years to be able to prevent sarcopenia and osteoporosis? And it's like, you got to get over the short-term weight loss goal a little bit and focus on fueling your body. So I think that's such a good reminder for all of us to increase our fiber. I do have an ultimate food guide, just in case anyone's wondering, well, what foods are higher in fiber. So zivly.com/ultimate food guide. There's over 40 high fiber foods on that table. Just as a resource for anyone who wants to start increasing fiber. Anything else that you wanted to mention today about this program or
one thing that's come to mind is another one of the metrics that we track, and they do this for multiple classes, is our lean body mass percentage. So we do an impedance test on a machine called an InBody. That's just the brand name of it, but it's a machine that you step on with your bare feet and hold on with your hands, and it uses bioelectrical impedance. This is stuff I learned about with my exercise science degree way back when. But then it gives you a printout of what your percentages are for your lean body mass, your body fat percentage, the amount of water. It also gives you your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, for how many calories you need just to survive. So we kind of use that as a starting point. And then we track and focus on their lean body mass. I'm not focused on an overall body weight. I'm not focused on body fat percentage. That will take care of itself. If you're gaining lean body mass, then percentages go down and numbers shift around where they need to be if we're focusing on gaining some muscle. So we'll make recommendations based just on that. We had one of our participants that was losing a little bit of body mass every month, maybe a pound or so, and she just was not eating enough. And so very common, she's a pretty thin person anyway, but we're we're trying to, give her more ideas for meals, more ideas for protein, but people just aren't used to eating a big quantity of food.
Especially like you said, they have decreasing appetites. We see that
Yes.
a lot. They're just not hungry. And
Right.
this happens earlier than you might think, 50s, 60s. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the research that I've read, I told you on the second edition of the Sibley course, and a high protein diet, you can go different ways for like the percentage of carbs versus the percentage of fats based on body composition and fitness goals. But I feel like protein needs to be the staple in the diet. And the research really supports about 30% of calories should come from protein to maintain lean body mass when losing weight. So if people are listening and they're like, yeah, I want to build lean body mass, but I don't want to get bulky and I don't want to gain weight, I want to lose weight, really focusing on high protein can help with both goals because it helps support that lean muscle mass. There's a really interesting study. I can't remember the exact statistics, but they compared different diet types. And high protein diet was by far the diet that helped preserve the loss of lean muscle mass with weight loss. So most of the weight loss was coming from adipose or fat tissue.
Sure.
So I like that you guys are measuring that and really kind of breaking down, well, where is the mass coming from that you're losing, and really highlighting, hey, you're losing muscle mass here. This is because you're not eating enough. Yeah.
Right. And then talking about how overall it affects your metabolism, and you will probably feel like you are a little more hungry as you gain more lean body mass because you need more calories to fuel that. So it was a unique thing to go to a gym and they tell you to eat more. So it's just that they're looking at your whole fitness, whole wellness profile.
Yep. And I like the more muscle I have, the more I can eat. So the more muscle mass I have, the more room your body has to deposit glycogen, which is a storage form of carbohydrates. And it goes there before it's going to fill your body fat tissue, like your body fat stores. So the more muscle glycogen you have to fill is like the bigger your garage, the more cars you can put it in.
Yeah.
So I like that. And then the other thing that I had reviewed lately is that a pound of muscle burns about 7 to 10 calories per pound per day versus a pound of fat is about 1 to 2. It's just a more metabolically demanding and active tissue, like you said, to raise that basal metabolic rate and be able to eat more without gaining weight. And it's like I'm eating healthy, but I like knowing that. So good thoughts. Anything else you want to share on fall prevention? This program that you put together?
I think it's just been encouraging to see people come out of their shell and realize some potential. I've been gathering some quotes from some of our participants over the past few months, and one of them that always sticks out is there was a lady that said, "I used to think about falling all the time, and now I hardly ever think about it." And she's also the one that says, "I haven't jumped in like 20 years." So, and she's just doing little hops, but it's just expanded her, probably her view on where she sees herself in 10 years. Like when you're feeling more capable, then you're going to maybe do more things that you need the capability to do, like traveling, like spending more time with your grandkids doing active things. So all of those quality of life benefits are just like a cherry on top, but that's really why we're doing it, just to help people's lives be better, improve their quality, resiliency, all of that.
Yep. I think just as a final note, I really want to challenge people to do something that they're not sure if they can do. And I have an example from my life, and then a resource to share with you if you didn't know about it yet, and anyone else who's in the Lincoln, Omaha, the local area. So our church has this playground for kids, and it has a super high pole. And I was like, what is that for? And is it just for climbing? And I wonder if I can climb that pole. And I never used to be able to do the rope climbing in high school. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the strength. And when I first grabbed that pole, my thought was, there's no way I can do this. I've never been able to do this. I've never had that kind of strength, but I did it. And I climbed all the way to that top. And I was like, oh no, now I have to come down. But I was really excited that I could do something now that I couldn't even do in high school. So you can gain strength with age. The other thing is, have you been to Mahoney State Park to the rock climbing wall?
No, I have rock climbed before, but I haven't been to that one. I've heard it's really good though.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I shouldn't tell everyone about it because right now it's not crowded. And if I get the word
Mhm.
out, then maybe it's going to be too crowded for my liking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you're really wanting like a fun challenge, that's a really
Mhm.
great way to kind of use strength in a different way. And
Mhm.
then my mom also recently told me about the Fontanelle Forest tree climb adventure,
Oh,
where
uh-huh.
have you done that? I haven't done that one.
No, I've had friends that have done that though, where you have to zip line or you're hooked to the things where you are walking across ropes suspended between trees.
Yes, I feel like that would be a really good activity for some of your class participants.
Yeah.
Hey, you're gaining all of this mobility and all of this strength.
Mhm.
Now go see
Mhm.
what you can do with it in real life, and I think
Mhm.
that's the
Mhm.
best. Like when I have a client and her goal was to water ski, because
Mhm.
she wanted to get a little bit of weight off and improve her fitness so she could water
Mhm.
ski and snow ski. And like
Mhm.
that's what we love hearing about is an
Right.
improved function to be able to enjoy their life with their loved
Yeah.
ones.
Right.
But I think if you're not consistently working above and beyond your natural capacity that you do on a daily
Mhm.
basis, you can't do the
Mhm.
fun stuff.
Right.
So I like to say I do the hard things so I can do the fun things.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, you share that and I'm really excited to
Mhm.
see how this goes. And I
Mhm.
wish you the very best of luck. If you're in the
Thank
Omaha area,
you.
definitely check it out. Where can they learn more about the program?
Yeah, so a couple places. We have a Facebook page, so it's UB Stronger 55, 55 plus. And then there's also an email, ubstronger55 plus at gmail.com. And then the UBX website, which is ubxomaha.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Betsy. I wish you the
Yeah,
best of luck, and I'll reach out soon when this one goes live.
great. All right. Thank you, Morgan.
Thank you. Bye.